we have room for improvement overall as societies, as nations. But I think it all starts in the home. It all starts with self-reflection. It all starts with looking yourself in the mirror in the morning as you're brushing your teeth and you go, what can I do differently and better? What can I do differently and better today?
This podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders in Tech podcast. Today we have with us Milos Topic. Milos, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, David.
Milos, for the audience, can you give me your full name?
Sure.
I think I did that.
Sure, Milos Topic.
And where do you live, Milos?
I live in Michigan in Grand Rapids right now. I've been here for about 4 years. Before that, I was on the East Coast, primarily in New Jersey.
New Jersey. Yep. And what do you do for a living?
I am currently a Vice President for Information Technology and Chief Digital Officer at Grand Valley State University. It's a university of about 23,000 students and about 4,000 employees. We are based in Allendale and Grand Rapids, Michigan, with sites all over the state. My role has two major components. One is to lead the IT organization, and two, to partner with other leaders, the president and many other folks across the university and beyond, to reimagine the future of higher education.
That's a fascinating task to do. You must love that.
I love it. It's exciting. It's interesting. Small digression. My PhD research was on the role of CIOs in driving innovation in higher ed. So when you get to actually contribute to that every single day, it's very exciting to get up in the morning and go after it again.
That's beautiful. So you yourself have a doctorate degree then?
Yes, I do.
Tell me more about that. What prompted you to go so far into your career, into your education?
Yeah, I got my PhD. I completed my PhD about 5 or 6 years ago. And what was really interesting when I started it, so I started it 6 years prior to that. But when I started it, I looked around major universities in New Jersey and New York where I lived, and all the vice presidents had one, whether it was a PhD or EDD, but they've all had doctoral degrees, and often in areas that weren't really related to the work, but in academia they had it. And I've noticed engagements with some of the faculty, especially tenured faculty, was different when you come to the table with that credential than without. Now, I'm talking 10, 12, 15 years ago. Things are a little bit different today. So at that point, I had 2 master's degrees. I sat down with my wife and I said, hey, I'm going to go give this a shot. I looked around. I found one program that was interesting to me. Started as technology leadership program at Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey. Halfway through the program, they rebranded it to business administration to kind of match the trends across the country. But I literally entered it with, I'm going to apply to one program. If I get in, I'm going to go and I'm going to finish it. If I don't, I'm going to use it as a sign. Not meant to be, and I'm not going to do it. I applied, I got in, and I finished it.
That's amazing. So you were doing it while you were working?
Different place. I worked at Montclair State at that point. I went to Stevens, different university, a little bit more engineering and tech focused. My undergrad was computer science and math. Then my first master's was Master of Science in Information Systems, then an MBA, and then later I went and got a PhD.
So that's amazing. So your career so you really wanted to become a vice president of a university then? That's why
initially, I fell into university work by accident, but yes, as I looked at things, as I was advancing the ladder, I looked at how certain vice presidents were acting and performing and getting things done, and I was very impressed. But then there were also others who I thought weren't as good in their jobs. So I figured if they could do it, I could do it too.
Mhm.
Right. And I always wanted, my goal has always been, how do I impact the largest number of people in a positive way? And when you have an opportunity to lead a division and maybe make some strategic investments and priorities, you can certainly find a way to enact more people in a positive way. And this is my second vice president position at a different university. And it's been a very, at times challenging, but overall very fulfilling career so far.
That's amazing. How do you fall into university lifestyle? University world?
Yeah, I fell into computers, into technology. If I started even earlier, I came to the United States in '98 as a refugee from a country that no longer exists. I was born in Yugoslavia, born in Bosnia when the war broke out, moved to Serbia, Belgrade. So that was the first time I was a refugee with 2 suitcases overnight. And then in '98 again, and I was in the US, high school, didn't understand the language, didn't speak it. They gave me a list of these majors or shops to pick from. So I'm going all the way down the list. I don't understand half the things. I get to the end and I go, TV production. I'm like, can I do TV production? Sounds kind of cool. You're on TV, but you don't have to be in front of the camera. You're part of new shows and, things are going on. And they said, oh, we have no available spots. Go back up to the top of the list. So I went back up to the top of the list. I started looking down. The first thing that I thought I understood was computer science. I go, how about computer science? They said, we have 1 spot open. Do you want it? I go, sure. And that's all. Luckily, I got good at it. I enjoyed it. But I fell into that kind of line of work by pure accident at this point, more than 25 years ago.
That's incredible. So how many years of high school did you do in the US?
2. I was going to do 1. I was supposed to do 1. I did 3 in Serbia. When I came here, based on where I lived in Patterson, New Jersey. Based on where I lived, there were only 2 options for schools. One was a very, very rough school, rough neighborhood. There were fights and stabbings and shootings and all kinds of things. And I could go there straight into my senior year. And there was another one that wouldn't give their degree to anyone who hasn't spent at least 2 years with them. So I had to go back into my junior year and do my junior and senior year in New Jersey.
Amazing. Your story is so beautiful. This story alone is worth this episode. Thank you for your time. I'll tell you something similar that happened to me personally. One of my first roles as leader in technology was I got in charge of a large laboratory corporation in Canada, and they had locations coast to coast from Vancouver all the way up to the eastern Canada. I'm talking 2003 time. And the company started growing and I needed to grow my team. So I was looking for talent, and it was really hard. I was looking for a database analyst, and it was really, really hard to find people locally. And all of a sudden I get this resume from HR, and his name was Zlatko Stevanovski. And he was from Montenegro. Macedonia. Yes.
Yep.
And when I did the job interview with him, he had been looking for a job for over a year, and nobody would give him a job because he didn't have any Canadian experience. But he came with all types of certifications, and his English was good enough. I mean, for being behind a computer managing databases, I didn't need perfect English. And so to make the long story short, I gave him a shot. I had to deal with HR, saying, we'll give him a year probation because he doesn't have any Canadian experience, and that was part of the rules back then. And he was my best employee. We became best friends. Now he runs the audit department for one of the largest police organizations in the country.
That's
He's
awesome.
the lead of audits, IT audits in the Toronto Police Department. Thousands of people that he manages with his, like this is like 25 years later, right? And it's just like you. And I'm so impressed because I had a similar story, but nobody gave me a chance. So I came to Canada when I had my first computer science degree done back in Guatemala, where I was from. The country was torn with war, a civil war between the communists and capitalists. And thank God capitalists won, by the way. But anyways, I had to run away. Thank God my brother was already in Canada in university. So he told me, hey, when do you try to apply here? Came to Canada. Nobody will give me a job. So I went back to school like you. You did 2 years of junior. I did the whole software engineering career, like from scratch. But I didn't care because, I really wanted to become a professional software developer. So that experience really marked me, because as soon as I graduated, I went into my own business. I failed for 2 years trying to run a company that I didn't know anything about business, but that gave me enough business experience to get a job as a developer. So I started from the very bottom, knowing that I could have done that as soon as I got into the country. So here I am 10 years later, and somebody else comes up with the same problem. So I saved him 5 years of schooling by giving him a chance, and turned out to be that he gave me a beautiful service. So like the company would love him, right? But talk about perseverance, right?
Yeah, 6 degrees of separation. The world is large and massive and beautiful, yet so small. And I think what you just touched on is one of the things that I try to do every single day. Is how do you find opportunities to give people a chance? Now, sometimes, but you gotta, like you did with HR, you have to stick your neck out and go, I trust that this person will do well. It's giving people opportunities and chances, and sometimes it doesn't work out, but at least you knew. Because you look at certain positions, everybody wants 10 years of experience, 6 languages, walks on water, does all kinds of other things, sleeps 3 hours a night, and we'll pay them $4, right? Yeah. Well, that doesn't work that way. So if you want that unicorn, those unicorns are very expensive, and you got to find, and they're rare to come by, and you got to find a way of how do you give opportunities to other people to succeed. So I am very impressed by your actions, and I'm sure he's very grateful for the opportunity you gave him.
Oh, we're still best friends, like we keep in touch once a year, and amazing because you guys come from the same region, right?
Same area, yep.
It's incredible, and when I see people, and I see what they are doing with immigration nowadays, like, I don't know, I don't want to get into politics, but at least in Canada, they are letting in the worst of the worst, and these poor people, they just come in and they make things very complicated for the rest of us. And I'm an immigrant, and I hire a refugee, right? But when the countries just open the borders and they don't care, they don't review, they don't even see if it's a legitimate case, all you get is all kinds of terrorists and robbers and people that really drain society instead of adding value. Canada had the best economic growth strategy was always immigration. And I'm a true example of that. Now I run multiple IT companies, and I am so blessed that I get this time to interview bright minds like you. But if you come and you do that too fast, and you don't even have any type of filter system, you break the fabric of society, which is what happened in our country, right?
Yeah, I hear you. I'm an immigrant. I'm a refugee. But I had to go through the process. I had to interview. I had to wait. I get approvals. I get scanned. I had background checks. I had fingerprints. Then they were like, "Come back 6 months later." I'm like, "My fingerprints didn't change." No. We want to do them again. I'm like, "Okay, do them again." Yeah. Right. So there was a process that I went through. I got a white passport. It was called white passport for refugees first, and then I had that for several years. Then I had to apply to get a green card, and when I got a green card, that took several years to apply for U.S. citizenship. Like there was a journey that took a long number of years that I had to go through, and I believe in opportunities and giving people chances, but I also believe in accountability and leadership. Yeah. And sadly, we lack in both of those areas across the world today.
It's incredible how everything changed, eh?
Yep.
So tell me, you went to computer science because that was the second option. You liked it, thank God. What did you do right after school, the first time, your bachelor's?
When I got that's another thing, university. As I was doing my undergrad, there was a couple of different technology organizations and teams, mostly focused on the academic technology and academic research. I went in and I said, hey, I need some money and I think I can help. So I fell into kind of entry-level tech services position, almost like a service desk. And I did that for 20 hours a week. I started helping as I was getting my degree around the same time. I started helping. I started doing all kinds of things. And then I realized slowly I was being given more and more responsibilities. Then as a student, I managed students. And then as I was getting ready to graduate, the director of that department at that time approached me and said, would you be interested in staying? And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, we don't have a position right now, but you have another 6 months until you graduate. I'm going to see what I can do to create a position for you to stay. Later, I came to realize, and I think this became one of my mantras in life, is figure out what keeps your boss up at night and solve that. Okay? Because if you're helping your people, if you're helping your direct supervisor, he or she, if they're good at what they do, are going to pull you along, are also going to take care of you, are going to make sure that you have what you need to be successful. And if they're not good at what they do, if they're very selfish, self-centered, if they steal all of your accomplishments and make them their own, now you know where you stand. Now you have the option to go, I tried, I did my best, I'm going to move on and go somewhere else where I'm appreciated and respected. So they created a position. It was a low-paying position, but I took it. And I took it, and I did that as a senior technician and a technology coordinator, ultimately associate director. I kept advancing. Ultimately, down the road, I took over that department, became a director of it, ran it, and then I moved to another university as chief technology officer. Did that for a little bit. Then I got a call one day from the president of that university. This is a funny story. His office reaches out to me and says, the president would like to meet with you at 4:00 on a Friday, on this coming Friday. I'm like, okay, is there anything that I need to do, prepare? And they're like, no, just show up. I said, okay. Are you going to send a calendar invite? And they said, no, we called you, you know. So now I'm thinking it's either something really good or really bad. Clear out my office. There's no record of this meeting. It's not on the calendar. I have no agenda. But okay, so I show up a few minutes before 4. Some of his staff members are wrapping up. They're leaving for the weekend. He's still not there. And so what do I do? They were like, just wait. I said, okay. Eventually, he was late. He shows up, comes in. We go into his office, which is like 3 sets of doors to get to his office. We go in. It's just me and him. At this point, probably 4:30 on a Friday. And he goes, talked to a lot of people about you. And I go, don't believe everything you heard. And he goes, it's mostly good things. I go, don't believe everything you heard. Right? we have a laugh, all good. And he goes, I have realized that you are able and doing more. You have helped me realize why technology belongs in the senior team. So I want to make you an offer. And I go, okay. He goes, I was a chief technology officer. He goes, I would like to promote you to the vice president of IT and chief information officer. I said, thank you very much. And I go, and he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, there's always an and. What's the and? And he laughs and he goes, well, there's this other area that I would like you to take on. It's not really performing well. 2 vice presidents have failed. Why don't you give it a shot? And I go, do they come together? Can I just pick one and not the other? He goes, no, you got to take them both. So I took 2 different areas. In a lot of respects, for about 5.5 years, I operated as both CIO and chief operating officer. So I had a kind of dual role, leading operations as well as technology. So that was a lifelong, important learning set of experiences that I've learned along the way.
And obviously you succeeded.
We did okay. I was very fortunate to have really, really good people on both teams. They just weren't appreciated, respected. They weren't given authority to lead. They were often, their contributions were minimized while their successes were glorified by others. So I just had a set of conversations. I obviously was engaged myself, but I really empowered and enabled those assistant, associate vice presidents, senior directors, executive directors who were leading those areas to really move forward with full lungs of fresh air to say, you have the authority to lead this. It also comes with accountability. So if your team is not performing, you're accountable to improve it, but go and let me know where you need me. And it took us some time, but at the end of the day, we had a great team. We're still in touch. I now live 3 states away. They're in Jersey. Every time I go there around Christmas time, around New Year's time, I make sure I see them. We grab lunch, we talk. So amazing people. When you come across amazing people, you should find a way to, stay in their lives for as long as you can.
Beautiful. And you have said two amazing, great golden nuggets that if people listening to this want to increase their leadership style, just by these two things, you're going to do a 10x. Number one, what I heard is always try to fix what makes your boss stay awake at night.
Yep.
And number two, when you take a challenging team, most of the time is that the people are not appreciated well, and people don't have what they need to go through and solve the problem that they have, and then get the acknowledgement after they actually solve it. So this has been exactly my experience from a side of a couple of exceptions. I'll tell you one of the exceptions, right? I joined teams. So when I started my first business, 3 years into it, I had this problem. I was a great technologist. I was an amazing leader in technology because I came from the corporate world, 10 years doing roles similar to, in the software field mostly. And I didn't know how to sell. And a company that doesn't sell goes bankrupt. But I was good enough so that every time I would finish a job, they would recommend me to another business. That's how I was traveling. So finally, I met this company, same company as mine, software consulting, software development. But this guy had the exact same problem, but in the opposite way. He was excellent at selling, but he sucked at delivery and keeping the team happy. So I said, okay, you teach me how to sell, I teach you how to run operations. So that was the deal. I thought that I was going to go and empower the people and do exactly what you said we should do. I ended up firing 90% of the staff. 90% of the staff. And the problem wasn't that they were bad people. They were so entitled by the previous leader that they were unfixable, because they had all these things in their mind that they were the golden child, and because they were excellent developers, they deserved the world, and that they should be paid twice as much as the average developer in the market, and they should be able to work from home all the time, and like all these things, right? One guy actually was working from Mexico. In a time, this is 2008, where people were obligated to go to work, to the office every day. So I had to clean shop. And I turned the office around. Like, we went from losing $5 million a year to making $800,000 a year. I did that in 12 months.
Wow.
By cleaning out the team.
That is impressive. Yeah. You're spot on. One of the comments I made earlier was about accountability. It is very sad, and I get it. We all have challenges and battles. Like, I don't know who this quote is attributed to, but it goes, I'm paraphrasing, but it goes something along the way of, be kind to every person you meet, for they are fighting a battle you and I know nothing about. I believe in that. However, we live in this society in the world where we are going out there and really taking ownership and agency away from people. Mm-hmm. Something is always being done to them. Somebody's always stabbing him in the back. Somebody else has the authority over their lives. I don't believe in that. Like, sure, we're about to have an election in the U.S. Cool. Am I going to vote? Yep. Do I think the selection of the president is actually going to determine how I and my family live 100%? Absolutely not. No. That's on me to figure out. So it's just having that ownership and having accountability. I worked on teams where I met with people and I said, hey, let's say it's 50-50, 50% you, 50% me. We can both do better. And then you're going down this process and you realize they're not connecting. And I actually had a conversation with a person who was in a managerial role. And I said, look, let's say it's 90-10. Let's say 90% of our past failures are on me. 10%, it's got to be on you. You're the person running that area. And his response was like, I don't know, maybe not full 10%. That's when I knew this wasn't going to work out. Right. So you got to have some ownership. Yes, everybody has plenty of, how they say, failure is an orphan and success has many fathers. right? Everybody, oh, it's like, I was me. I made it successful. You weren't even around. You weren't even part of the process. Let's give credibility and accountability and recognition to the right people who did the work. And also at the same time, when you fail, you know how disarming it is? Like, I've been part of many failures in teams. It is very disarming when I go in front of everybody and go, I messed up. I failed. We dropped the ball. Here's what we did wrong. Here's what we're going to do better to make sure that doesn't happen again. Everybody knows. What's the point of me pretending like it wasn't my failure? If it was, or if it's my team's, we failed. We're going to learn from it. We're going to get better.
I know. That reminds me also great leadership. We were doing this big database migration in this company. Millions and millions of records. And the same guy, actually, the guy that I told you that I hired, this is after a couple of years, he made a mistake. He made it to he became, like, very quickly, he became, director of database management. So he was already leading a team. And somebody in his team made a mistake and they dropped that table in one of the most important legacy databases. Basically, we crippled the system. So the next day, if we didn't fix it, we will start losing millions of dollars in sales, because it was like a 5,000 people organization. So I called my boss, I called the CIO, and I told him exactly what was going on. I told him, listen, I made a mistake through my team, but honestly, this guy didn't really mean it, but the damage is done. And I told him, but don't worry, we're fixing it and we're going to figure it out. And if you need to blame somebody, fire me. Don't fire that kid. So I took the whole responsibility. Then I went to the team and I said, okay, guys, we have from 8 p.m. until 9 a.m. to fix this problem. We know we can do it. I know that you didn't do it on purpose, because nobody is crazy enough to drop an important table in a database system that has over 4,000 tables. I know it was a mistake. So whoever did it, raise your hand. Raise his hand. Okay, no worries. What did you do? Let's reverse engineer the problem. To make the long story short, it took us about 6 hours to figure it out, and we will recover from backup, and everything was fine by 9 a.m. But I gained the respect of the team. Since that day, everybody was doing 110% in their own job, because they knew that I had their backs, and they also knew that they could actually afford to make mistakes because they are not doing them on purpose, right? So I always tell my team, great problems create heroes if you have the right culture in your team.
It's the wartime general versus a peacetime general, right? Everybody can be a captain of a ship when the seas are calm. What happens when the storm comes in?
Yeah.
And leadership is what you just described. I agree with. Leadership is a very lonely place. The higher you go, the lonelier you get.
Right.
Because you have less people above you to go, hey, now what, boss? Right? It's on you. You got to make a call. And everybody's expecting something from you. So if those who are in leadership, and if they're in there to be popular or liked, they're in it for the wrong reasons. You got to be in it with the right mindset and right intention, and that is to hopefully impact the lives of others in a positive way. You're not going to get everything right. You're not going to fix everything for everybody, but make it better. Make it better than it was when you came in.
Yeah.
Hey, I came in for a year or 3 or 7, and in that time, I made it better than it was when I arrived, and leave it in a good position for the next person that comes in after you.
But you know what? There is a key factor of faith in this whole scenario, because why did I respond that way? Not because I'm a great guy. It's because my previous bosses taught me how to be that way, and because at one point I was that kid. Maybe not with the same problem, or something similar, catastrophic, that my boss covered up for me.
Yep.
So I knew how to behave. So if you look back, so I'm a born-again Christian, and I love Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I try to behave like he behaved when he was on earth. If you look at the servant leadership style, that's what you do, that you're following the servant leadership style. When Jesus came as human and he washed his disciples' feet.
Yep.
He didn't ask somebody to wash his feet. He didn't come as a boss ordering people to bring them food. No, he went and tried to solve their subordinates' problems. which is what a true leader should do. But what happens in the real world? Sometimes, thank God I never had like anything like this, but sometimes you get stuck with a boss that is a narcissist. You just told it before, right? And if you're young enough in your career, you're going to get influenced by that leadership style. And then you're going to do whatever it takes to move up the corporate ladder in the wrong way by just flattering people and blaming everybody else for your own problems. Yep. That's how you create monsters.
The exceptional, I agree with you. I have worked for and with amazing leaders. I've also worked, I'm sure you have too. I have worked with people who occupied positions of leadership, who were not leaders.
Yeah.
And if you have enough confidence and courage in yourself, and if you were brought up in a particular way, that bad leadership can also show you what not to do.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, it can be influencing you to turn sour yourself, but it can also say, I don't like this. I don't appreciate it. I see how the team reacts when he or she comes in and does things. So I will, when I'm in that role, I will make sure I don't do that. And then finally, what's really interesting in that process, in that journey, is self-awareness and regular check-ins. There's very few things career-wise that are more sad than climbing a ladder. Climb the ladder, you climb the ladder, you climb the ladder. And then at some point, 10, 12, 15 years later, you realize it's actually propped up against the wrong building.
Yeah.
Are you doing what you're meant to do? Are you doing what you want to do? At the end of the day, your number is going to be up. Did you spend it living somebody else's life, copying somebody else's journey, or did you create your own? I tell my team, when we were building a new team here 4 years ago, focused on IT innovation and research, I started with one person. Now it's 4 or 5 people, and we're growing it, and they really go ahead of the rest of us. They really go out, test the latest and the greatest, and experiment and partnerships and so forth. And I literally told the person, he's actually retold that story several times. I've told him, I said, look, it's a very thick forest. I'm going to give you a machete, and we're going to go through it and figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
There's no road. I don't even know if we're going to the right side of the island. I don't know. But we got to figure this out. Do you want to go with me? I'll grab one, you grab one, and we'll go figure it out together. And that is that trust that you got to find people around you who believe in that and who have that excitement and energy to do something new every single day. And then some people, there's nothing wrong with that. Some people want predictability. I want to come in, do my 7 technical things, 9 to 5, and go home. You need them too. Right?
It's a different role.
Yeah, it's a different role. You need them too. But to really go out there and kind of lead the pack, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Another thing that I see in you that really truly defines an exceptional leader in technology is that you build other leaders, right? When you told me you go back and you check with your previous team, it's like, why are they doing great? Because you build them up. And you know, going back to the end of your career, it's all about fulfillment. I mean, of course, we're going to make mistakes, but even if we fall into the narcissist trap, I fell into the narcissist trap. By 2011, I was my worst enemy because I became that narcissist. And it was based out of fear, based out of pride. I actually I wasn't a narcissist until later I had to actually, the Lord showed me. That's why I'm horrible narcissist I was. At some point in my career, when my psychologist told me that I was a narcissist, I didn't know what the word meant. And then I went back to my office that day, and I saw my office, and it was filled with pictures with awards with my face on it. It looked like North Korea.
I hear you. It's a building. It's so great. Like when you go back in retrospect and you see that awakening moment, it's so refreshing. One of the things that stands out to me, I was a child. I was maybe 10, and I am walking down the street with my dad, and these 2 young men, well, probably maybe like late 20s, early 30s at that point, run across the traffic. They almost got hit by a car. They run across the traffic, and I see them. They're running towards us, and I go, "What is going on?" Right? They walk up and they extend their hand to my dad, and say, you probably don't remember us, but you were our high school history professor 15 years ago. The way you treated us, the way you worked with us, the way you talked to us, we just wanted to come across and shake your hand.
Wow. That's beautiful.
That's when I was like, got it. These dudes were about to get hit by a car. To shake a hand of their high school teacher from 15 years ago?
Amazing.
Because he left the impact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is. Because if you're only focused on yourself, you become insular, you start emitting negative energy, and you never reach that potential.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Building others, there's nothing better. There's nothing better. Because at the end of the day, your success is inevitable if you have enabled and empowered others around you to be successful. You can't lose.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of the times when you look at a failed situation, the one that is to blame is the leader. Because if the head goes right, the body goes right. If the head goes left, the body goes left.
100%.
Right?
100%. The body follows where the head goes. I agree with you. My kid, I used to play a lot of sports too when I was younger. My kid now, a 12-year-old boy, he's into soccer, plays it a lot, and he does certain moves, and I go, let's break this down. And then you explain to him your body movement and your positioning, and I'm like, there's no way of you running full speed that way and looking that way. Impossible. Right? So you got to look where you're going, your body, your positioning, your kind of vertical line of your body directs where your energy goes. And that applies to life, that applies to work, that applies to everything you do. But it's part of that is also really knowing, like what you said earlier, when you found somebody who had one skill set that you lacked and you had the skill set they lacked. That's what you got to find. None of us are great at everything. Find those people around you to fill the gaps of things that are really important, and then just create those partnerships and run forward together.
Yeah, beautiful. Milos, thank you so much for your time. I mean, time is going by fast, and I know you're a busy executive, but I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions before we finish.
Sure.
First, what has been the worst trouble you got yourself into as a leader in technology, and how did you come out of it?
The worst. There's so many. So I would say one of the things to me that stands out is being, and I'm getting better at it the older I get, but I have had many times, I'm very comfortable saying what I think. Whether it's just you and me, or me and 10 other really important executives in the room, doesn't matter. I think this is stupid. I'm going to say that's stupid, right? When you're younger, you don't understand how that is often conveyed and understood by the other side.
Right.
They take it as you're attacking them. I am attacking the problem. I'm attacking the idea. But people perceive it as understanding them as a personal attack. So in my career, I've had multiple opportunities to do things differently, where we have room for improvement overall as societies, as nations, but I think it all starts in the home. It all starts with self-reflection. It all starts with looking yourself in the mirror in the morning as you're brushing your teeth, and you go, what can I do differently and better? What can I do differently and better today? Was I perfect yesterday? No, I wasn't. Was I kind of out of the line? Yeah. All right. What can we do so I don't do that again? That's where it starts.
Yeah.
And that's hard work, because you got to admit to your own faults and failures, of which we all have many. And that's uncomfortable for a lot of people.
It's beautiful. Milos, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. Congratulations on your career, and thank you for making this world a better place through your leadership style.
Thank you very much.
If people like to follow you or ask you more questions, are you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm easy to find. If you just put my name into any of the search engines, I'll come up.
Wonderful, Milos. God bless you. Have a beautiful rest of the day, and I'll see you around.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
You touch a great point. You cannot be a good leader if you're not a good communicator, because what you just said is, how do I actually express myself so that whatever I'm trying to convey is understood, right?
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, one of the greatest communicators in history was Adolf Hitler. And he actually hypnotized people with his speeches. But there was something to learn about that. Like the way he actually spoke to people penetrated their minds in such a way that he fooled a lot of people to do the wrong thing. But if you do that, use that power to influence people in the right thing, that's how you become a great leader. Right?
Yeah, words matter.
Words matter a lot.
Important to use them with caution.
Right. You know, the Bible says the tongue is what drives your entire life, and fire comes out of it. And actually, the power of life and death is in the tongue. And talking about that, that's what's wrong with our society nowadays, right? I mean, we have so much censorship nowadays. People get offended so easy, you know, that number one is because we lost respect for each other and we don't know how to communicate, but also the level of the way people think about what they deserve is so horribly transformed that they think they deserve the whole world and that the world is for them and everything should be made by them. And that's how society lives by now. That's why America is so polarized. Canada is polarized too, right? Like you can never express your opinion anymore in public because they will tell you, oh, you're a racist, or you're a homophobic, or whatever the topic is, right? You cannot even express yourself because we lost that as society, right? Like that way of communicating respectfully and respecting somebody else's idea without having to agree, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's we used to be able to in everything disagree and go sit together and still go have lunch or grab a drink.
Exactly.
And now it's that becomes increasingly more difficult, and you know, way too many people are focusing on disparaging the other person as opposed to debating the merits of their idea. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about ideas. Maybe you're right about some things. Maybe I'm right about some others. Maybe the real truth is somewhere in the middle. Let's have that conversation. As opposed to way out of the gate, people get attacked on their personal level, visceral level. Often it gets attacked by people who would never have the courage to say that to you in person. Right? It's online. It's, you know, so-called keyboard warriors. But I do believe there's a lot of pendulums in life. And I think some of these pendulums swing very far to one side or the other, and eventually they do correct. The problem is some of them then auto-correct too much to the other side. Because you know, in academic research or any kind of research, one of the first things you do when you look at data is you drop the outliers. If you map out your data set, it's in this range, and then you have two data points that are way out there, they're not statistically significant. So you drop those, and then you look at where most people are. And I would say that most people are really good people who just want to live and like have hopefully a good neighborhood, have their kids do better than they have done in their lives and their future, and just have some peace, prosperity, and mental sanity and clarity. And it's really disappointing when you see some of those same people who want that for themselves, who do not offer that same courtesy for somebody else. Yeah. And I do think at the end of the day that good always wins.
That's true. You know, I completely agree with that, and I have a lot of experiences to prove it. And also, when you look at those two outliers in the data set, in our society, those two little dots are the ones that are the loudest. And so you think everything is broken and it's horrible, but it's in truth, they're just making a lot of noise.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. Right? We have.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.